Hey guys, welcome to Big Laws Official. Today's guest on Talking Strongman, the incredible 4 times World's Strongest Man. And these days he is the head referee of World's Strongest Man, the absolute legend that is Magnus Magnusson. Magnus, how's things?
Pretty good. Hello, everybody.
I've been trying to get Magnus on for ages. I messaged him ages ago and he just ignored me. I thought he was ignoring me. And he's just old and can't use Facebook properly.
It has to do with that I read messages and I forget to reply.
That's okay. I'm going to let you off because we're here now. No, it's really good to have you on. Obviously, this year has been very, very strange, but we have World's Strongest Man coming up. You are the head referee for that this year?
Yes, I am.
You're looking forward to it?
And as far as I know, for the next few years.
Excellent. So you're the man in charge. Well, you're a great referee. Even the fact that you've disallowed me reps before, I think you are a very, very good referee.
Oh, you're not the only one that has lost reps.
No, that's very true. I don't feel singled out. You are very strict across the board, and that's what we need as a referee in strongman. So you're the man for the job. But obviously,
I believe in refereeing. It's like you have to be strict but fair.
Yes.
And if you're like that across the board, you don't run into any problems.
Yeah. If
you get lenient towards somebody or whatever, you'll get all the other athletes jumping on your back.
Of course. Yeah. No, you need that. It needs to be the same for absolutely everyone. Good solid lifts. I actually, whenever I see an athlete given a bad lift, I never blame the athlete. A lot of people online, they'll jump on the athlete. It's the referee's fault for giving the lift. Oh, yeah. If you say down to me and I'm like there on a log, I'm not going to say no and kind of finish off the rep. You're down and you're off.
You'll drop it and be glad that you didn't have to hold it any longer.
Exactly. But obviously the refereeing is kind of one of the things you do right now. I want to, before we talk about maybe all the other stuff, because you're heavily involved with the disabled side of strongman. I know you've been really working hard with that. I want to talk about that later. But I want to take you back to the start because you are, almost at the start of strongman. I mean, you've competed alongside Bill Kazmaier, John Paul Sigmundsson, and then, the Gerrit Badenhorst, those kind of guys in the 90s. You've been involved in strongman right up until the present day. So you almost know absolutely everyone. I'm sure you've got some incredible stories. But I want to start with what got you into training in the first place. So just, take me back to when you first got involved.
Okay. Well, I was living in a place that I'm kind of originally from. That's called Seyðisfjörður. It's on the east side of Iceland. And population just under 1,000 people. And before that, I had been with my grandmother and grandfather at a farm. So I kind of started growing up there. I was always pretty strong, always, getting in trouble like everybody, teenager does and all that. But actually, one of Iceland's best powerlifters and Olympic lifters, his name is Sigmundsson, moved to this place to be head of police.
Okay.
And he got the sports council there to order some lifting equipment. So that's how it all started. And we were there in this little sports hall, which is a swimming pool in the summertime. The floor was taken away and it was a swimming pool underneath. So we started lifting there. So every training session, we had to go to the side, bring all that we were using out on the floor, lift, and then put everything back. Because there were other sports there. But we had I don't know what we had, an hour or something, or two, 3 times a week. So that's how it started.
How old were you back then?
I was about 18.
Okay. From there, then, where did you? I mean, was there? Obviously, John Paul Sigmundsson was a huge star in strongman, and was he someone that you sort of looked up to, or did you even know about strongman back then?
Not really. He was already a powerlifting star here in Iceland at that time when I was kind of starting out. And I remember at this time I was sitting with my friends, and in this place, and we were watching telly. And they were showing John Paul and some other guys, lifting.
Yeah.
I think it was the Nordic Championships or something like that. So I said to all my friends, I said, well, one day I'm going to be there. They thought it was funny.
Yeah, like they would do. I've been there before.
Yeah, exactly. But I proved them all wrong. But, it's just, then from that, I moved, actually went for a half a winter thing. I went to the Westman Islands, which is a small island. There's another small community, but a bit bigger than the one I was used to, and I was in school. My trade is actually welding, mechanics.
Yeah.
So, and I was training there as well. And then from that, I moved to the big city to go to school again in Reykjavik. And but the main reason was I was chasing that guy that had been head of police. He had moved to Reykjavik and was in charge of gym. So I moved here, and I had to take the bus every day to go training for like half an hour or so. But I did it. Then I stopped school. I started the work as, that's a bouncer. Okay. So I was working nights, training in the day. And, from that, for some reason, I gained, I got strong. And I've always trained for just strength, explosives. I was never a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Never, I never trained that way. And, that's a lot of the times that, in the past that came against guys that a lot of the times people count me out.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't the biggest.
Of course, yep.
But we had some people from what is it called? Iron Man.
Yeah.
In this one contest. And they were all just fascinated with Johannesson. And I like, oh, why are all these guys talking about you? I said, well, I guess it's because I've won the World Strongest Man a couple of times. I did win that show as well.
Yeah. Joe was a massive man, though, wasn't he? I remember watching you guys competing, but as we know, it's not always the biggest man that wins these shows. It's the best athlete, and you were exceptionally consistent at every event. You sort of, even if you had this unique knack of figuring events out very, very quickly. When you see like a lot of guys, you could see they were struggling. You really looked at an event and you just managed to manipulate your body sometime, and you were strong. There's no doubt about that. But everyone at World's Strongest Man is strong. You were smart, and you sort of had that combination of strength and intelligence to figure out the best way to do the events. And I think that's one of the reasons you were so dominant.
Well, I think also what helped me because I was like a builder and all that. You learn how to figure out things. What's the easiest way to do things?
Yeah.
And then also, of course, you have to figure out what's the fastest way to do things.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Sometimes I think.
But the funny thing is, and because a lot of people were talking about Martin Zillis, when he won. Oh, he wasn't the strongest. He was, this and that. Well, he blew everybody away in the squat in the final.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that a pure strength event? Yeah. It is. And, people were saying that to me, about me. It was like, well, he's just fast on his feet. He's this and that. But come to a deadlift, usually not lower than second.
Yeah.
Or first. Come to an overhead lift, always top 3. Come to a squat, I would win.
Yeah.
So, doesn't that tell you who's the strongest?
In strongman, it's about being the best all round anyway. That's I mean,
it's having that strength. You don't have to necessarily be the strongest deadlifter.
Yeah.
But having that strength to stay up there and be good at everything else. And that's pretty much the key. You have to be a good all-around athlete.
Well, talking of, like, obviously you're 4 times world's strongest man winner, which is absolutely incredible. Absolutely, it's ridiculous to think that Iceland has 9 world's strongest man titles for such a small nation. You know, yourself, John Paul, and obviously Thor. But what was it like, kind of, because your first show, you were just like the reserve, weren't you? I don't know, is that true? I've heard like that rumor before.
True.
Yeah.
It's true.
So you went into world's strongest man as the reserve.
Yeah, I was European powerlifting champion at that point. I went straight from that to Scotland doing Helen Games, just the next weekend. And in Strongman, I was doing really well that summer. I had my sports club from the east coast of Iceland. They sponsored me a couple of air tickets. So I used them to go to Scotland to prove myself.
Yeah.
And so I got invited to, as a tester, as a reserve for World's Strongest Man in 91. And 5 weeks before the show, I get a call. This was like 11 o'clock at night. I was almost asleep. I get a call, and I'm asked to compete because John Paul had tore his bicep in a competition in Denmark.
Okay.
Now, this was my huge opportunity to really prove myself. And I went there seriously. When I got to the airport, the funny thing is, we were all flown into London, and then we all went together on a plane to the Canary Islands, to Tenerife. And I'm there at this airport, and I had seen some of the guys before. That's the first time I also saw Manfred Öberg.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him. I'm looking at Ted Van Den Pala. And I saw one big guy. I'm going like, what the hell am I doing? But then I thought, well, I'll show those big bastards.
I think so many of us have been to contests and thought that. But I think it's so good to hear that from someone like yourself, because there'll be so many people watching, and they'll it's very easy to look at a 6'9", 400-pound monster and think they're unbeatable. But everyone's beatable. It just depends how willing you are to push yourself to the limit and not make excuses for the size that you are. We're all built differently. If you look at every single world's strongest man winner, they vary in size and abilities on certain events. They've all the unique thing they've all had is that drive to push themselves to get better and better all the time. And I think everyone, it doesn't matter who you are, you'll look at other people and there's a little bit of oh wow, they look really good, or they're good at, especially this day and age with it all on the internet and stuff like that, they'll post their training videos. But when you're a competitor, you sort of have to block all that out and you're like, right, I'm going to give 100%. And you were extremely good at doing that. It's nice to hear that you did look at them and think, those guys are huge. But then it is get that game face on and right, I don't give a damn how big they are. Time to give it my all.
Exactly. Well, another thing that I was pretty good at was, how you've seen these guys, they can't sleep at night before the show and stuff like that. Well, their nerves get them.
Yeah.
That didn't happen to me. And I was usually there. I was telling the guys jokes, even in the tent, waiting to go out to do the events, just, messing with them.
Yeah.
Then okay, we're starting in, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Then it's like, and that movie, Over the Top, Stallone.
Yeah.
That's that thing.
Put the hat back. Time to get focused.
So it's like, switch on.
Yeah.
Now it's time to get serious. And I believe that did help, because if you try to stay focused and just think about that all the time, you'll drain yourself of energy.
You see it a lot. I see so many guys, they're talented, strong guys. You see what they can do in the gym, and then they go to a competition and they just crumble. They mentally just beat themselves up. They're there, like you say, towel on their head, music in their ears, kind of trying to psych themselves up. And you can just see the energy kind of being zapped from them. And it is the guys that manage to, you watch a lot of the top guys, they all joke about a little bit. And then when it's time to compete, then the game face goes on. It's very noticeable, and it's a great bit of advice to give anyone. Is you've got to try and relax, try and enjoy it, have a bit of banter, because it's a tough sport.
Well, I always looked at it like having fun, enjoying what I'm doing. Yes, you're in a competition, but in the end of the day, you're all friends, except for Mega Man.
Okay.
But
we'll talk about that in a minute then.
But you're all friends. You're having fun, and the thing is with this, and this is different from powerlifting. It's like you can appreciate more what the other guy's doing, and my thing was always like I was always impressed what the others were doing. I would just go try to do better.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, take me to this first Worlds then, because has anyone ever won on their debut before, other than the original World's Strongest Man?
No.
So you came in reserve. You're at your first Worlds. Nobody's like even looking at you. They're all expecting Iceland to send John Paul Sigmundsson. This kid turns up, and you beat everyone. That you must have got some people looking at you after that, thinking, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Well, this was when the time the BBC was filming, right? So I was doing events like truck pull or something, and I would finish my truck pull and stand up, and I was just laughing. And BBC people started asking me, what's fits you, right? Everybody's huffing and puffing here, you're just laughing. I'm like, I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying myself here. And now, a lot of people, well, some of the people have been up against me in shows before, recent shows.
Yeah.
So they knew. A lot of the people, other people there, did not expect that.
Yeah.
And they were like asking me, what? It's like even OD said, it's like, what's happening in Iceland? One guy gets injured and they just send another one. What's going on over there?
It must have been tough for like the third guy in Iceland there, knowing like there's you and John Paul ahead of you. It must have been tough. But
it was for him, poor guy.
What were the events? It was like 91, wasn't it? I remember seeing you doing like a loading event, I think.
It was a loading. It was a mixed loading with some implements. And some guys couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Awkward objects. I remember everyone being different. Yeah.
So it was the first event, and I remember I won that. And I can't remember the whole events. We did a deadlift up in the mountain, so the air was pretty thin. But put it this way, I didn't need to go higher because I had won.
Yeah.
At that time, I had plenty more in the tank. The overhead was a barrel lift, which is quite difficult.
Yeah.
There's a lot of balance involved. And, even against big, strong guys like OD, I managed to beat him on that as well. And I pretty much stayed in top 3 or even, in the others. When it came to the last event, I really didn't need the score there. I only needed like 1 or 2 points, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
it's always a nice position to be in going into that last.
It is, but it's still like when you get into that position, you won, and you go like, well, okay, I have to put in a little effort.
Mm.
You're never going to be able to put 110% in.
Yeah.
So, but I still did the last event. think I came second or third in it, which was enough.
Yeah. So you're the new guy. You've gone and won World's Strongest Man. Then I believe it was World's Strongest Man the next year in Iceland.
Yes.
So obviously that must have been you're going in with pressure this year. Then you're the World's Strongest Man, and that's probably not taking anything away from Ted van der Paar, because he's the man that won at the end of the day. But from memory, I remember watching you do the Husafell stone, and you just looked like you were faffing around with it.
Well, the thing is, it comes down to the Husafell stone as the last evening, and I wasn't even worried about that one.
Yeah,
and I picked that stone up. It felt so light. But, you always do a mistake. You always do one that two. Actually, I should have won 6 times, but, you always mess up 1 or 2. So I dropped it. I put it too high on my chest. And even I got my fingers together. Now, what happened when I started walking? It was the pressure on my chest, on my breathing. And it wasn't the weight, and I couldn't see where I was going. So I was trying to control it. So I stopped. I was going to try to let it slide a little bit so I could see and breathe.
Yeah.
And instead of sliding, it fell down like that.
Oh. Yeah, we can all look back and say ifs and buts about contests. I know, talking to Zadrunas, he said he could easily look back and say he could have won this contest or that contest.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you've still won 4 World's Strongest Man titles, many other titles. So
I'll take it.
And I guess you learn from mistakes as well, and that's something that's important. I think we've all made mistakes.
I never got so short with that stone.
Yeah.
Never again.
Yeah, well, that you obviously learned from it then. But even the year after, 2002 was a stacked lineup. To be fair, you had some competitive guys. It was quite a close finish, I think. And then 2003 was in France with Gary Taylor winning that year. He was in great shape 2003. And then 2000.
Well, I wasn't in shape in 2003. My head
93. Yep. Okay.
Because John Paul Sigmundsson passed away.
Yeah.
In January that year, and seriously, my head was not in the game, and I went there with no expectations really, and I still came in second.
Yeah.
And so, I said to myself, I'm like, well, wait a minute. If I would have done my homework right, I would have won this. So I went back to the drawing board.
Oh, and then you really came back. But just stopping you there before we go on to that dominating period of your career. You talk about Jean-Paul Sigmundsson. How close were you guys?
Well, we were pretty close. Yeah. We had done a lot of traveling together, and actually in the beginning, I did learn a lot from him. Yeah. One of those things was when I got into the powerlifting, and he was like, you remember the Rising Star in powerlifting. Yeah. And I had these powerlifters that I started training with, old, and they were like, "Well, his training methods is all wrong. He's training too much." But I saw what he could do with his training, so I'm like, "Well, I'm going to be training too much."
If you can train too much and win World's Strongest Man 4 times, it's worth training, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I think with training styles, everyone's different. But maybe people would look at Mariusz Pudzianowski and say he trained too much, but he won World's Strongest Man and many of the other titles. Yourself, Jean-Paul Sigmundsson. It's getting that combination. You've got to be able to work hard, and that's where sometimes people like.
I've had guys, training with me, as I'm trying to cope with this, what I was doing, and they couldn't. They just couldn't take that much of a work. And I remember this. We were training for a team competition me and this other guy. I'm not going to mention his name.
Okay.
And the difference is, this is before I've been most of this man. The difference is we were going to do some training sessions together. So I show up on time, of course, even before time, and I'm training. I've already done like half an hour of training when he finally shows up.
Yeah.
So we do a training together, right? And he takes off. But I stay and keep training.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. You know, he was a wannabe, and he was the third place, what you talked about earlier. And you know, that's just the way. If you're not willing to put in that work, that volume of work, you won't succeed in this sport.
Do you think a lot of people say they want it, but they're not prepared to actually put the effort in?
Yes.
I think it's a fair comment. You know, when you look at all the really elite athletes, you do see something kind of, it's a mental strength more than anything. That willingness to push themselves into that dark place where some people just aren't willing to go to. Because I've met some incredibly strong people in the gym. You know, you see them in the gym, they're unbelievably strong. But when it comes to competition, and Strongman has a lot of events that just hurt. They're just, it's not about who can lift the most sometimes.
They'll hurt in the beginning and then just start hurting more.
I mean, people have asked me like on like grip holds and stuff like that. They're like, oh, it gets so painful. I said, keep going till it stops hurting. You know, it's trying to create that mentality that you could just, you just got to get comfortable being uncomfortable in Strongman. And I see too many people, they're like, it's hurting a bit. And then with a year, they stop doing it because it's painful. And you see the guys that do well, they just keep coming back. I mean, you know, your countryman Thor, I was watching a few of his old Arnold competitions, and he was last a number of times, but he kept coming back, kept getting better every year, kept getting better. That shows that commitment. Eddie Hall as well. I've seen him, you know, get his ass kicked at Britain's Strongest Man a number of times, and then he just kept coming back, getting better and better, and then ended up being, you know, a dominant force. And you can't give up just because you're not the best straight away. No, I mean, you won World's Strongest Man first time, but they haven't seen the training that went on before that.
Well, there was a lot of training that had been done before that.
And to be fair, I think it's very different now where we have so many more competitions and social media and stuff like that. People are seeing quite early now. We've got so many up-and-coming stars that haven't even competed yet, but we know their names. We've seen what they're doing in the gym. Whereas back then, I guess you're just training quietly, and then you could slip in with no one knowing. But it's a different period. But yeah, no.
The internet hadn't arrived, and which has changed a lot of the things, and it's changed it in a way as well, which has been good for the sport. Is the sport is more known?
Yeah,
it's more out there.
Oh,
we were just like a few crazy guys just lifting heavy stuff, pulling steady stuff, and you know, people just looking at this on TV, and they were like just amazed on what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now you're more used to it. You see it more often, and I'll tell you what, I'm impressed how far this sport has gone. A lot of the things I did shows in like Lithuania or something like that. When Sigmundsson was still like 16 years old or something. and the crowd that we had was unreal.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one I think I've had. We did except for us, we had done some really good indoor shows, right? With huge arenas. But now, these are one of the best shows in the world. It's just, and the atmosphere is just electric. You know, I love it.
Are you glad to still be involved with it now, with the growth of the sport? Because obviously, I mean, you know, you and Kaz last year doing the Hercules Hold together was funny because your grip strength as well. You could have easily just done the same weight as the top guys, but it's amazing, I guess, because you've seen the growth of the sport from the beginning. I mean, I've seen a good amount of growth in the sport, but you're almost from the start. You, like I said, you've competed with Kazma, you've competed with John Paul, those guys that were winning in the early '80s, and to still be involved how you are, you've seen that growth better than anyone. It's when you do these British shows in front of 10, 12, 15,000 fans, genuine strongman fans, not just people that are put there to make it look like there's a crowd, genuine fans that have bought tickets. It's a humbling experience, I think, sometimes.
It is. And yeah, I believe I'm blessed to still be involved with the sport a lot.
Yeah.
And I believe with the sport that I kind of helped put on the map.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So, it's, so this year has been horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't been able to go. The only thing, the last show I did was the Arnolds.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was all just that was behind closed doors as well, wasn't it? The Arnolds.
Yes.
So that was just before lockdown.
Yeah.
And then you should have been at many shows, I should imagine, this year.
Yeah. I'm missing out on a lot. But
have you got?
We'll just have to adapt.
So, other than World's Strongest Man, are you involved with any shows happening this year?
Well, I've run 3 shows over here in Iceland already. We don't know yet if we'll be able to do the disabled one. The World's Strongest Disabled Man was planned because of the COVID-19 to be in Iceland. And we've been holding on to it, seeing how things go. So we're still hoping we can do it later in the year. If not, that's just one other thing. But I've been doing these, shows. This is just Icelandic shows. And those are the shows that run for years. And my plan actually for this year was to do like a Magnus Classic.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be pretty much stone lifting challenge.
Cool.
Overhead rock lifting championships.
Classic Icelandic stones, yeah?
Yeah, lifting major stones,
nice.
Carrying stones like this, similar to the Dinny stones. I found these. I did a tryout on these in my Strongest Man Iceland show. And I made these. It's a special rock. It's called black rock, whatever, in Iceland, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the picture of the rocks that it's like.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like tutors, right? It's that kind of rocks.
Okay.
I made farmers out of these.
Ooh.
They were horrible. They were horrible.
Smashing everyone's legs up, I should imagine.
Yeah, they were hard. I think it was 1 by 20 meters.
Wow.
And it was like something like 140 kilos in each hand, but they were like really hard. And that's how I like it.
Yeah.
It's supposed not to be just all nice. It's supposed to be hard.
Awkward and difficult.
Yeah, and awkward. And we went to, and that's a plan for the stone lifting top, the Magnus class, is also the Husafell stone. So we went to Husafell, where the stone is located. And we carried it around the sheep carroll there, like it's supposed to be carried. And it just was great. And this is what I'm planning for next year. It's going to be the Magnus Classic.
So is this going to be...
Now I guess I'm going to have to involve log lifting into it.
Okay.
Because I have these beautiful logs coming over.
Nice.
That Richard Looney made for me. And he made the 2 logs months ago with the Magnus logs.
Are these the nice big wooden ones that he makes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he made the new one is the John Paul log. And so that's what. So I got these 3 logs coming over here. So I'm going to have a log lifting competition.
So is this going to be like an international show you're looking at?
I'm looking out for that, yes.
Nice. I hope next year there's a lot of good shows, because obviously this year's been awful for sporting events and stuff like that. I really hope things do improve and we can get back to running these shows, because it's been rough this year. I mean, how have you found?
It's been really rough. But you know, one of the good things is I've used this year. I've collected a lot of the rocks that I need and stones and etc. I'm actually involved with these guys that have this kind of theme car park a little. Mm-hmm. So they got paintball, all sorts of things going on there. So we're setting up a strongman garden. So I got 14 stones to lift overhead, different weights. So we're putting all these stuff there. I have a sister stone, Husafell sister stone.
Okay.
From Husafell. The farmer there that owns that land found it for us.
Yeah.
So it's a sister stone. It's cool. Slightly smaller, lighter, but it's still a great stone to practice on. It's like 150 kilo stone.
Cool.
And so we're putting all that stuff together, and we put big trees into the ground as platforms for the stones and stuff.
Cool. So it's going to be like a really rural-looking contest.
Yeah.
None of the nice shiny stuff.
It's just going to be. Yeah, no. This is just raw, rough, and this is the Magnusson strength garden kind of thing.
So it's a question I was going to ask you anyway. Like, as obviously being involved for as long as you have, 4 World's Strongest Man titles, you're the head referee at World's Strongest Man. If you could change anything about the sport, what would it be?
Well, there's one thing. I wish there would have been all this money into it when I was winning it.
That's fair enough. You're just doing it for fun back then, yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is, like, these guys now, the sport is getting more recognized. They're getting, huge sponsors and all that. This is great. Like they should be, like every other athlete.
Yeah. It's I think it's brilliant the way it's going. We're getting more and more interest in the sport. There's so many. You've got all the. You've been heavily involved in developing the disabled side of things. That's a fairly new niche, but obviously the women's is fairly new. I know there's been women for a while, but now the women's is popular, and there's lots of different weight classes. We've got the different men's weight classes. Even when I started, it was heavyweight strongman, and there might be 1 or 2 women that competed in a national championships. Now there's 4 different weight classes, and every single weight class is stacked full of athletes in the men's and the women's. And I mean, I know Gary Clark, who kind of is involved with the disabled side of things over in the UK. I mean, again, when I started, he was the only one, whereas now you fill out a whole contest of athletes that are loving it. And I've been involved to come watch some of the shows. Those guys are incredible, just seeing what they can do.
They are just unbelievable. And every time I'm involved with contests with them, I'm always impressed by how they kind of step out of their disability, and they, it just blows my mind sometimes. Especially, one of the things that blew my mind was at the last Arnold's was Martin Ty pulling a seated deadlift of 550 kilos.
He's incredible.
Real.
Yeah.
That's with almost no leg power, just about no leg power.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
And, funny thing is that, I've been using this seated deadlift as my deadlift training lately so I'm not putting the pressure on my knees. And it's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not pulling 550.
No, I was going to say, what's your best?
I don't know. I haven't done it. I'm just doing it. It's just in reps.
Yeah. It's so fascinating watching them. I remember watching a disabled show in the UK, and I can't remember the guy's name, But what I loved about it was his commitment. They were doing the Atlas stones, you know, where they sort of lift it from one plinth to the opposite side.
Yeah.
And the guy must have crushed his hand with an Atlas stone. And instantly I saw it kind of swell up, and it swelled to double the size. He just looked at it, shook it off, got on with the next stones. There was no moaning about anything. He just kind of went plowing through. And afterwards I was like, oh, does that not hurt? He's like, fuck it, I'm hurting anyway. I just want to compete and do his best. You know, unfortunately, I can't remember his name, but I was just so impressed with the determination and just the attitude, because a lot of fully able guys will complain about everything. And this guy didn't give a damn. He just wanted to compete. And, you know, he's like, sod it, I've got another arm. Let's keep going.
That's the weird thing is, like, these guys don't complain. They just want to compete. They want to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about it. Now, we were taking this. This was actually original idea of one of my good friends called Arna Mal. He was a coach for the disabled in a special, facility for disabled people. And one summer he was just tired of going into the gym, and he started taking these guys outside. Had them pull his own car with the rope, and from that it developed, and then I got involved with it, and we kind of developed it, with the events, what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
We figured out really fast, throwing for height was not a good idea for somebody in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
There's going to be kind of logistics.
Oh, no, you can get this on your head. No, stop that.
Yeah.
Okay, figure out a different way. We even had them, harnessed in a rope in the chair and pulling a truck.
Wow.
With the rope. But we haven't done that for years now. We just do a seated hand over hand.
But I mean, that's the fun thing, is trying to find what they can and can't do, and develop the sport more and more. I mean, how many years has the disabled side been going for?
This started somewhere around 16 years ago.
Okay.
So we were here in Iceland, were the only ones doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Until, and Gary had come over a couple of times, like that, and he was the one that brought this to UK.
Yeah, I think he's very proud of that fact.
Yeah, and suddenly, there came some guys from US as well, and essentially it started over there, and it started to pick up everywhere now. It's really growing into a sport.
Again, it's fantastic, because it's just more people involved in the sport. Like I said, we've got like the under 90 kilo classes, under 105. I've even seen like under 120 classes now, which you'll probably laugh at, because you could have probably made that, if you dieted a bit. But when you compete against the super heavies now that are 180 kilo plus sometimes, I guess having weight classes just makes it that much more accessible, and that makes more people be involved in the sport, which will allow companies to produce more kit, more money come in. And, when you were involved and I started, it was literally very, very niche. You had to be a freak of nature to do this stuff. Yeah. Whereas now it's much more accessible. Every gym you go to has loadable equipment. There's women using Strongman a kit as just part of a circuit. And it's great to see.
I believe the CrossFit has helped with that.
Definitely.
So, these kind of sports, they help each other.
Yeah.
And you're getting the, what you'd say, the normal people interested and into the sport. They're suddenly they're in the gym, they're starting to lift a log. Oh, this is fun. So they end up doing a show. Like, I'll enter this show and see how it goes. And it's just developing. And I think that's awesome, getting some weight classes in and all that. But I still believe, there should only be one world's strongest man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There shouldn't be a world's strongest man under 105 kilos. Or what, you know what I mean?
Do you not think there should be?
There should be a world champion.
Yes. Okay, I see your point. Yeah.
You see the title,
Yeah.
That's just, That's just my opinion.
No, that's fair enough. I get it. It's very difficult because when I talk about strongman, I just treat it as a sport. I don't really, you know, the argument of who's the strongest man in the world is always going to be an ongoing argument. People will say it's a power lifter. Some people say it's a weightlifter. Some people will say it's a strongman. I just look at it as being the best in your sport. And I guess the title world's strongest man is confusing to a lot of people because maybe you don't have to be the world's strongest man, but you've got to be the best strength athlete to be the best all-round athlete to be the best. And I like the fact that we have lighter weight classes, but I get your point. You can't be the world's strongest man if you're under 105, and then the heavyweight guy is also calling himself the world's strongest man. I see what you're saying there. Unless you then chuck them into an overall at the end, like some sports do.
But, mind you, though, a lot of these 105 guys, they're unreal.
Oh, without question.
The way they move, it blows my mind sometimes.
Even some of the under 90 kilo guys, it's ridiculous what they do. The numbers now are world-class numbers that these guys are lifting. I think the only thing when they're smaller is when they put into a contest against the really big guys, the big guys' bodies just cope better with things like heavy yokes, truck pulls, those kind of things. When you're bigger, your body can kind of take more of a beating. It's, you look at like Brian Shaw and Thor, they don't get injured that often. Whereas the smaller guys, when you start pushing to those kind of limits, get injured much easier. And now the weights and the heavyweights are quite crazy on some of the events.
I agree with that. When I started out in this sport, I've been told there's more at that, strength athletics. It's like, I think that's a good name for it. It is. We had to pick up heavy stuff and move heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But we were moving it longer distances. We were running with a 200-pound sack on its shoulders for like 200 meters.
Yeah.
And just crazy stuff like that. And
the events have definitely changed over the years.
And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the guys became heavier, bigger.
I guess they just had to adapt to, and it's always an interesting thing. I mean, it's something when I was speaking to Jeff, we talk about the guys now, and it's always good to say what could you guys have done against the guys now. But the way he looks at it is, what could we have done against you guys back then?
Yeah.
Because it's just almost two different sports in some ways.
In some ways. I believe if I would have been put together, on now, I would have still been kicking ass.
Yeah.
Because all my training, all my nutrition,
everything would have adapted.
Exactly. So if I would have been doing the same training regimens and everything these guys are doing now, no doubt.
I agree. I think guys like yourself, Kaz, all those kind of older legends, you would have adapted. I think the big difference between the guys now is there's just more good guys.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas back then, I think there was like a few exceptional guys, whereas now you can have 10 guys in the final of worlds and they're all monsters.
If you found one good in a country, really, really good in a country, now you can pick from few in every country.
Yeah. It is crazy. Anyway, I want to talk about 94 to 96 because I think there was no question in those 3 years you were the absolute dominant force in strongman. 3 titles in a row. How did you motivate yourself to kind of keep coming back? And because you had a lot of good competition, there was a number of really good guys: Gerrit Badenhorst, Riku Kiri, Manfred. There was some awesome guys that you were up against.
Well, like I said, after that show in France, I realized that I could have won. I could have won that if I would have just had my head on the right place and prepared properly. So that's what I did. I went back and trained my ass off. And I came back. Because I wanted to prove a point. It's like it was all these speculations that I got lucky, winning the first one. Oh, John Paul wasn't there, or Jamie Reese wasn't there, and so I had to prove a point that I wasn't just lucky.
I don't think you can be lucky 4 times. I mean, I remember one finish.
I had luck, but
well, you spoke about you were winning quite comfortably in the 91 show. I remember, was it 94 against Manfred Herbal? It was like neck and neck going into that Atlas Stones at the end. And I think you just won by a split second.
We were equal points before the Stones.
Wow.
So it was do or die.
And it was just a fraction that you got that stone up before him.
Well, I had seen, Manfred, we had done the Stones before, a couple of shows and all that. And I knew Manfred would be fast, especially with the first 2.
Yeah.
So what I did is I had this game plan. Is that I'll stay with it with the first 2. As soon as I put my number, I think it was 2 or 3, can't remember. As soon as I put that one on, I ran as fast as I could to drop the next one. And I was ahead.
Yeah.
And I kept that until the end. And Manfred got distracted as well because he was carrying the stone. And he looks over and see I'm ahead of him.
Yeah.
Almost stumbles, but, gets it. And it's just, I had that game plan. It's like, in my head, I was like, put that on, I go. Go down.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to take a risk and make some kind of tactical decision. And I'm sure sometimes it doesn't pay off, like, 92. Other times it pays off. It's
sometimes that. The funny thing is, this was the first show I ever came up. I had made myself sleeves for my forearms because I kept tearing my forearms to bits. And I remember doing shows, and sometimes 2 shows, 2 days in a row, doing the Atlas Stones.
Yeah.
My forearms were already bleeding from the day before.
Yeah.
And so I had something made, especially for my forearm. That was the first time I brought these along. And they worked.
Excellent.
You know what I did? You know how you have these big Wellingtons when you go fishing, right? So I had a shoemaker take those things and open up the fabric, right?
Yeah.
Set them up. So it's like black inside. So it's like a kind of rubbery kind of.
Yeah.
And I open up, cut it up, and glue it back together so it's black on both sides. And then we made the Velcro on it, so I could Velcro it on my forearm.
These are like the original stone sleeves then.
Yeah, look like a charm.
Yeah, because everyone's got them now, but Magnus is the reason we've all got them. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's brilliant. And they just work perfectly. Obviously, in those hot conditions as well. Sometimes having the sleeves stops the sweat getting onto the tacky and stuff like that. So you just thought of everything back then, way before the rest of us had all these modern bits of kit to use.
Imagine if I would have had that tacky you guys have today.
You might have lifted a 180 stone.
Oh, that would have made us so much difference.
Yeah, no, it does. I think when you look at the advancements in strongman, it's, the deadlift and the pressing has come on, but the real advancements are in the actual strongman events. So you guys never trained the events like we do, but now you have yokes, farmers walks, Atlas stones. We have all of that to train on. And that's where the real advancements has come. And then better training methods, better, technique, better equipment to use. That's where the big advancements have been, more so than the just static strength.
Well, I was around, I think, when the first yoke was being done with. You know how we used to do the yoke?
Go on.
It was in Scotland, right? At Douglas Edmunds Games. And it was like a wooden yoke that you would use for a, animal, the oxen or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and there was trails from it. There was a little plate in the bottom, right? So it was a metal, and we have people standing on each side. A lot of times, 2 people standing on each side, holding on to this, running on the release on the field.
I bet those people were terrified, weren't they?
Don't drop them.
Yeah, I can't imagine some of the newer guys worrying about that.
So that was like the first yoke. The first serious yoke I tried was in Lithuania. And that was one of the craziest things I've ever tried. They had just a wood, 2 sandbag sacks hanging from the rope on each side.
From rope? Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you took these up, this was like swinging everywhere.
Yeah.
And we had to go, I think it was 10 meters or something, right? Turn and come back. This was in Lithuania, so all the Lithuanians managed to do this because they
were of course.
We were all first trying this for first time, and I think it was me and Kitty and one else that finished it because it was just throwing people on their asses.
Yeah. I've tried the chain yoke before, where it's kind of hanging with chains, and it's so much harder than a standard yoke. Yeah, that awkwardness again.
Train or something like that, though, but
yeah, it makes a big difference if you can train on the kit. Anyway, you mentioned earlier you got on with everyone except Mega Man, and obviously World's Strongest Man 96. Was he in your group?
Yeah.
Tell us about that then. What's with Mega Man? Nathan Jones, for people that don't know, absolute huge monster of a man. What was he, about 6'10"? Huge guy.
It was a big guy. He's been doing.
He was doing pretty well.
He's been doing pretty good with movies as the bad guy, most of them. But he didn't like me too much.
Any reason?
No, it was just because I was winning.
Oh.
And well, it might be a reason. First time he shows up was in Scotland. We were doing games, and he's up against Gary Taylor and some of the guys to do Strongman, and there was Highland Games going on. And the first weekend I was doing Highland Games, so he beat Gary Taylor.
Mm-hmm. First
time he shows up. So next weekend he's up against me, and I basically, one of the events was like the pole push.
Yeah.
And he had a bit of an attitude. He had beaten Gary and all that. He thought he was unbeatable. So I had to teach him a lesson. So one of the things is like, this is a big and heavy guy, right? And we get into the pole push. And basically, Randy Frosten wrote this on Iron Man magazine, right? There's a picture of us. And it says underneath, Magnus throwing Mega Man around like a rag doll. I got pretty mad at it. So we were going, and I just, threw him out of the ring, and I threw the end of the pole up after him. and like, fucking stay out.
Oh, the mano events, they're always good fun.
Really friendly with me after that. he didn't cope with that humor.
No. He seemed like a very serious guy.
Yeah. So in my heat in that qualifier, it ends up with doing the log for reps.
Yeah.
And I go first, and I put a good number for them to try to catch.
Yep.
And he was having difficulties. he thought he had it in the bag. That he was going to qualify. And but he didn't qualify. I think it was Jorma Ojana that qualified as well.
Yeah.
So, and I walk out on the tent to, shake his hand and, say, hey, good fight, good effort.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, he slaps my hand and is just like really pissed off. So that's how that went.
Have you ever seen him again since?
No.
No.
I don't think he ever did a strongman contest after that, did he?
No, I don't think he did. Because was it Magnus Samuelsson arm wrestled him in 95?
That was the year before.
Yeah, in 95.
Actually, the year after. So I looking at what he was doing, I had seen, he had tried this logs in the yard before the contest and all that. So I kind of knew what I was going to do. And I was, snatching the logs pretty much like they would call the Viper press. And, he was having difficulty. And I even saw that with the lockout.
Yeah.
And that's because he broke the arm the year before. So he couldn't stay with us.
Yeah. Well, strongman's tough. It's like we said earlier, it's the guys that kind of stay around and keep going that are the successful ones. There's been a lot of people come in like a whirlwind, be good for a year or two, but they can get forgotten about pretty quickly if, winning in this sport is not easy. And
no, I believe, I wasn't that, 7 times I showed up at the World Strongest Man.
Yep.
And only thing that stopped me was injuries.
Yeah. So I know about those.
Yeah, I know you had a few. But
if you're going to do this sport,
like in my country, for years and years, and I didn't really finally retire until I was like 45.
I actually remember when I was first getting into strongman myself, watching you in some of the Champions League shows and stuff like that later on in your career. But you just looked like you were having fun then, to be honest. You didn't, maybe not quite as serious as you were when you're in your prime.
No. I was getting paid to show up.
So obviously, with such an incredible career, competing against so many amazing athletes, who was your toughest opposition? Who were the guys that you sort of really respected and you knew you had to be on form to beat?
Well, when Manfred was there, he was always a tough one. We had a few battles, and he's one of the guys that adapted really well to strongman.
Yeah.
Now, Rico Kiri was. I remember one year he was pretty much winning everything. Every show he was winning, I was there, but getting second or something like that.
Yeah.
But come to the World Strongest Man, I beat him. Because that's the one that mattered.
Yeah. But do you think there was anything about Worlds that affected him, or was it just you were... World Strongest Man is a different show. I've said this many times. It's different to the one-day shows. I think you need that kind of calm head sometimes to be able to cope with the pressure and the longevity of the event.
Well, I believe also, let's put it this way, we go back, the 3 years I won in RAW, right? And has anybody won 3 in a row?
I don't think so. Maybe Kaz? I think Kaz did 80, 81, 82.
81, 80, 81,
80, 81, 82. I think, I think he did 3 in a row.
Okay, three of us, winning it, 2 of us winning it 3 years in a row. Now, where was I? I lost it.
You were talking about winning 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's an incredible. We're talking about Riku Kiri.
I know what I was going to say. That first year of those 3, was the first year that they brought in the qualifiers.
Yes.
And before that, it was invitation only.
Yeah.
Right? And guys got invited. So this was the first year was that they had the qualifiers. Now, I'm winning it with that 3 years in a row with the qualifiers. So it was longer show, longer, more events really you had to do it, etc. And I believe I was the best prepared athlete for that.
Yeah.
Because that's how I trained. My training was that much value at that time. That sometimes my training session went up to 4 hours. It happened. 3 hours was really normal.
Yeah.
And, so I was used to that kind of work environment. So even trying to save energy, it was like kind of funny. It's like I just seemed to keep getting stronger towards the final.
Yeah.
And I did even it's weird, but it's like I always reserved certain energy, even if I wasn't thinking about it. But then you had like guys like Rick Kitty do it, for example, or some of the other guys, wasn't used to this.
Yeah.
They were doing these one-day shows. They wasn't used to this, the waiting, okay, prepare, let's go. Right? And, oh, no, wait a minute. One of the camera isn't sitting right, okay, yeah. Go back. Wait for half an hour. Or...
It's a hard thing to cope with if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And some people just can't cope with it at all.
Yeah, and that's where it comes again to being able to switch on and just switch off.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, a lot of these guys just like concentrate all the time, and they can't cope with this kind of long competition.
They end up just burning up too much wasted energy. Yeah, no, definitely.
It was like I could see these guys like their energy level was dropping, but mine was coming up.
Yeah. And then I guess it just filled you with confidence and it just made you better and better. It's, I know from experience, sometimes when you can get on that roll in a competition, you just start well, and then you just feel like you're getting better and better and better when things are just going your way. And then that again can affect the opposition, and they think, I'm too far back now, and they don't try as hard maybe on the later events, and then you can just run away with a show sometimes. So it's a nice feeling when it happens like that. It doesn't always, but
it's a funny sport though. A lot of times happened that, and even that I was pretty much certain that I would win. I wouldn't win, but then I would win even that I wasn't expecting to win.
Yeah, I've been there before as well. It's so strange.
It's like you're too confident, and it's something to do with that. It's like you're too confident, and you don't really put everything you have into it. And then now you have to do your absolute best, and then you suddenly win that one.
Well, I guess what makes it interesting is that we never know what's going to happen. You can't just say that guy's going to win. I mean, I've been in that situation before. One of my best events, and I'll fuck up, and it goes crap. But you've got two options then. Some people will let that affect them, and they'll be terrible for the rest of the show. I remember it was 2018. I messed up on a frame carry, which is arguably one of my best events, and I totally, really messed up on it. The next event was the Atlas Stones, which isn't my best event, and I went and won it. But I didn't get frustrated. I mean, I was disappointed it wasn't a good performance, but I was like, right, it's done with. Forget about it. Let's move on to the next event. Whereas it's very easy to let that one bad event then knock your confidence, and then you just kind of go down, down, down. You've got to be very good in this sport at just blocking things out and moving forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right. Before I let you go, because I know you're very busy, I've got a few Patreons that want to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
So we'll just some quick fire questions. Let's see what we've got. So this is an interesting one, and I think I know the answer. But like, someone's asked, "What's your relationship with Thor like?" Because they never see you at his gym. But I know you've got your own gym that you run. Is it Jackable is your place. So is there a reason you don't train at Thor's gym?
There's no reason to train there when I have my own gym, which I think is way better.
Well, it's a very
and that's a reason. Well, put it this way: Jakobo, which I started years ago, that's the gym when Thor grew up in.
Yeah.
So, okay, he went along and founded his own gym. That's all fine, but he always remember where you came from.
Sure. Do you guys get on okay?
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Okay. Next question. What's tougher, competing or being a judge and dealing with all the athletes?
You know what? Mentally, a lot of times it's tougher to be the referee.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way.
Everyone hates the referee.
Much more competing.
Yeah, you enjoyed competing more.
We enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to let that go.
Sure. It's yeah, I understand that 100%. It is hard, but I got to say, you know, I know all the athletes feel the same. You're a fantastic referee, so you're doing a good job, and I like the fact that you're strict across the board. There's no favoritism. Doesn't matter who it is. I'm sure if it was your own child, you'd disallow them a rep if they didn't lock out. So it's good to see. Right.
When I'm there, there's no favorites.
No, you're there to do a job. Yeah, and you can see that. It's clear to see. What was your favorite strongman event?
Overhead stone lift.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of favorite. I don't know anyone else that would say that.
To me, that's the ultimate overhead lift.
Yeah, just because of the awkwardness.
It's just it requires so much skill, balance. You know,
you can't really train it either, can you? If every stone's different,
not really.
They all feel different. They're all balanced differently. You got to kind of be able to just feel the right way to hold it. It's interesting. What was the heaviest stone?
136 kilos.
Cool.
It was at that time the world record.
Yeah, I was going to say.
This was after I retired.
I can't imagine the record's much more than that now, is it?
Yeah. This has stood for about 15 years.
That stood for 15 years?
Yeah, it was actually me and Brian Schoenfeld that lifted that stone. We did that in Holland. And there were two other guys that was meant to, they were going to have a go at it. But somebody dropped the stone and broke it.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Was that just because you wanted to keep the record?
I got a down signal and I just dropped it and it broke.
There's not a lot you can do about that, unfortunately. One more question from the guys. How do you feel about the kind of individual world records that are being set out of a gym or out of a competition, outside of a competition? How does that? Do you think they're good, or do you not like them?
Well, I believe that's all fine. This has been, a lot of times internationally the only thing really happening in this pandemic, and it's been entertaining the fans.
Yeah.
Now, do I believe, in world records like that? In my opinion, I believe a world record should be done in a competition.
Okay.
But you have all that pressure, you have the other athletes, all that. But this is World Ultimate Strongman that has been doing that. And, inside their organization, they can call this world record.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, you were there You
I
were
don't
there.
have a problem with that.
You were the referee for Thor's 501.
Yeah.
It was incredible lift, obviously.
Well, I wasn't there when Eddie pulled the 500.
That was also an incredible lift.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, Eddie made history.
Yes.
When he pulled that. It was just an unbelievable feat of strength. And he will always be remembered as the one that pulled 500.
Yeah.
Now, he took the record from 465 to 500. He broke it by 35 kilos?
What was it? It was 35 kilos, yeah.
Yeah. So, which is a lot.
Yes.
So, whatever it is, 500, 501 or something like that, that's pretty much similar. But, the 500 barrier has already been broken.
It's like the 4-minute mile and stuff like that, isn't it?
Witnessing that, that's the heaviest weight I've ever seen pulled.
Mm. And you're a very strong man, so you appreciate how heavy those kind of numbers are. So just with that in mind, 10 years' time, where are we going to be at with Strongman? What's going to be happening, do you think? Because obviously you've seen the growth of the sport. How good are these guys going to be in 10 years?
For some reason, guys just seem to get better and better. The bar is, for the next competition, especially you watching this at the Arnold's, for last year, couple of years. It's like next year, okay, we'll put in a heavier dumbbell, or put in a heavier this. And the athletes always rise to the challenge. It's just been amazing to watch. And it makes me think, how far can you go? How far really can you test and take the human body? A lot of this thing has blown my mind. But I believe, to be able to pull these big weights, with the figure 8 straps and all that, it does make a difference. It's kind of, you can't compare that to like a powerlifting.
Yes, I totally agree. They're two different lifts. But the strength is incredible. I mean, I remember watching Strongman when I started to get involved, and Zadrunas won a deadlift with 360 kilos. Now, often at strongman contests, they're starting at 380, 400 kilos. And everyone in the contest can pull 400 kilos. Are we going to get to the point where everyone's pulling 500 kilos?
I don't know. It's just, like I said, how far can you push the human body?
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the popularity is one of the reasons. There's more people doing it. The internet, obviously, people see like when you were competing, we saw it once a year on TV, whereas now every time you flick through your phone, you're seeing some freak of nature lift some ridiculous weight somewhere in the world. And, it opens up people's eyes. There's better information out there and coaching, nutrition, all those kind of things. And I guess chasing the records, it makes people push that a bit harder, because there's a lot of guys now, they just specialize on 1 or 2 lifts. Whereas the real great strongmen are still, the Kiliaskowski, for instance, who's so good at everything. But there's guys out there that are exceptionally good at 1 or maybe 2 events, and they get a good name for being so good at those 1 or 2 events.
It's been, pretty interesting to watch. I'll tell you one thing, to pull, like 400 kilos, when I was starting out and powerlifting and everything, that was just something that was out of reach, really. I did get pretty close to it. But I remember, when Benedict Magnusson comes from, he comes from, he's been training somewhere abroad. He comes back to Iceland, comes to the gym, and he's going for 400. And I had a super suit that was too big for me. So I lent it to him.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, if you can pull that, you can keep the suit.
Okay.
So what does he do?
He pulls it.
He just re-wraps with it.
Hey, it was a motivating suit, obviously. He wanted that 4 times world's strongest man deadlift suit.
Yeah.
He was incredible.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. And but that's always the worst enemy of a strongman. That's injuries.
Yeah.
It is not like you're just tweaking a muscle a little bit. Sometimes you tear them off the bone.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many biceps go in my time. And what finally, stopped me, I had my knees tore up, my quadriceps, had them fixed and all that. And I came back from that, was still competing in Iceland.
Mm.
And then I was doing one of my shows, and I wasn't too many competitors, so I'll just, join you guys. And I wasn't prepared. And I tore my bicep, but it didn't go off. I just tore it. So it has a better peak now.
Yeah. That's the best thing. When you.
But after that, I was like, okay, that's it. I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just,
I think eventually you do. You can't give up at the first injury. If you give up at the first injury, it's not a sport for you. But eventually, it stops you. It's just that it's mentally that bit harder to keep coming back. I think when you've had injury after injury, that was my issue. I had a good career, but eventually it was just like, have I got the motivation to push myself for an extra 5 or 10 kilos, or then just get injured again? I think eventually you got to think, right, I got to weigh this up a little bit. Is it worth it? I would have loved to have got onto the podium at Worlds. I think.
When you get the injuries, you're pretty much okay. I'm back to the drawing board, right? Yeah. So you gotta try and prepare yourself. So you're catching up the other guys that haven't gotten injured and been training like normally, right? So you're suddenly trying to catch up with these guys.
Yeah.
And when you start having these setbacks again and again and again, you'll start, questioning yourself. You start like, okay, where am I really going with this?
Yeah.
Do I want to come into a contest and keep coming last, or should I just walk away from it when I'm feeling?
I think if you're a competitive person, you don't like being anything but your best. And that's been the thing for me. And I'm sure, 4 times world's strongest man, you don't like turning up to a competition being mid-table or near the bottom. When you're in your prime what you're capable of. I think we all get to that point.
Well, I tell you one thing. My plan always was that when I was kind of retired, I was going to retire strongman. Was that I was gonna go full time into Highland Games.
Okay.
I did not plan on my knees getting messed up, and you need those for the Highland Games. So, but for some, I was always pretty good at the games as well. I got 2 times third of the World Championships, and that's me not being a thrower.
Just messing around with it.
Yeah. I usually went like 3 times to the field, did throwing sessions before Highland Games. That was it.
It just shows how talented you were. I was just going to say before we leave you, do you still train quite a bit now then? Because you said you don't really do like bodybuilding stuff. You still focus on benching. I've seen you do some benching videos, and you're still looking pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, I try. It's been so hard, especially for 1 year or something with the training.
Yeah.
Because my knees are not really allowing me to do anything.
Okay.
And I'm scheduled to, supposed to have knee replacements on both knees.
Okay.
I did try the stem cells. it didn't do what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much over here just on the waiting list to have this done.
So with these injuries and stuff that you have, is there any regrets when you look back at what you achieved over your career? Because I've seen, like, you know, Ronnie Coleman, for instance, people see him now and he's really struggling, but he says he wouldn't have changed anything. You know, for those 4 World's Strongest Man titles, are you happy to have gone through it all?
I am. Only regret is dropping that Husafos, though.
Should have had that 5th title, yeah?
Exactly, at least.
Yeah. Magnus, has been amazing talking to you. Obviously, I could talk to you about Strongman all day, and we've had plenty of chats after competitions and stuff. Hopefully next year we'll be back seeing you referee these shows, and I'll be there, and, you know, we can have some more. But thank you so much for coming on. Very quickly, for fans wanting to find you, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on my Instagram. It's Magnus Mag, and they can find me through Yakable Gym as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's somewhere I need to come. Next time I'm in Iceland, I need to come and train there. So I will make it happen. Definitely. Magnus, look after yourself. I will see you soon, my friend.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Take care.
Do my best to live.
I will do. Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.